Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of all that I've learned from Anthony Robbins over the years. It's a new day, it's a new dawn, and it's a new start. It's the 14th of October, a day which is historic because today is the referendum for the voice, which by the looks of things, based on polling, will not get voted in, and in fact there is an expectation that it will be a landslide victory to no. So it looks like there is not going to be much change, and as the Greeks always say, "I ζωή συνεχίζεται," which means life continues. And in essence, what we all need to understand is that progress has a ratchet effect, and when you move forward, it's very, very, very hard to move back. And I remember years ago learning from Anthony Robbins in one of his tapes that in order to get leverage, in order to gain something from somebody else, you mustn't rely on their goodwill, but it's all about what future gain they can get from you. So the reason why this referendum is going to fail, and fail miserably today, is that the government and the people who are running this campaign have not been able to convince Australians in terms of what's in it for them. How can they benefit other than just a warm and fuzzy feeling that you're doing the right thing? People need to see, people need to be able to understand what the benefits are, not only for the other person, not only for the other community, but what the benefits will be overall to their children and their future generations as well. Because when it's all said and done, this wonderful nation, this wonderful country called Australia, is an expression of all the good work that lots and lots of generations have put together and contributed over the years, the past 235 years or so, where white settlement has come to this wonderful land and turned it into one of the greatest nations in the world. So once again, today is a great day. Today is a day where we celebrate being Australian, where we make the most of our shared heritage. And that heritage could be from the many, many different countries where people have come from. We've come from, my parents came from Greece, for example. I have friends that I work with who are islanders, others who are Lebanese, others who are Asian, others who have come from different parts of Europe, and also many people that I work with who have an Indigenous background. But we're all Australians. This country that we have here is a new country, a new nation, an expression of what can be great in the world. I know it's a tough call, but being Greek myself, I do know that we can never go back to the ancient times. We can never go back to Asia Minor and claim it as our own country ever again, because the world has moved on. There's a Turkish occupation in Cyprus at the moment. It's been like that for almost 50 years. And I know deep in my heart that it's wrong, but I also understand that it's not going to change, because 50 years have passed and 2 generations of people have evolved, have been born there, even though they live in separate communities. It's just the way things are, and we just need to accept the way things are and to move on, because every single person in the world will have experienced and lived a different past. We're all going to live a different present. I am here, you are somewhere else, and we're all going to most certainly experience a different future. The important thing, and I guess the most important advice that I can give anybody, is to not dwell on their past, not to worry about the things that have already happened, because it's what you hold on to that causes grief and causes pain. A number of psychologists have suggested that if you spend too much time living in your past, then chances are you're going to feel depressed, and vice versa. If you spend too much time living in your future, then you're going to experience anxiety. And God calls us to, by all means, spend some time reflecting on your past, spend some time reflecting on your future. But the call to action is to live and to serve God in the here and now, because all we really have is an eternal now. The past is gone, the future is uncertain. Nobody knows what's going to happen today, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. But what we need to do is make the most of these present moments, these moments that we have here and now, and to not dwell too much on the past, because we can't change the past. The past is somebody else's responsibility and accountability. The present is ours to make, to shape, and to colour, and the compounding decisions, the compounding elements, the compounding things that we do on a day-to-day basis, that's mine over there, love, will shape who we become. So my call to all my Indigenous brothers and sisters is to not dwell too much on the past and to focus on your future, to take ownership of your future, to educate your children, to educate yourself, and to be part of the present, and not to dwell and not to pine too much for the past. Of course, the Aboriginals, the Indigenous Australians, do claim that they have a spiritual past, and they respect it. But by the same token, we all have a spiritual past. Australia always was, is, and always will be God's land, a land for everybody, for past, present, and future generations. People who you don't even know will one day replace us. We all have a leasehold on life. We have no ownership. And that wonderful monument that you see across the waterway there, the Opera House, that too, one day will be replaced by something else. Nothing in this world is permanent. We are continuing to experience change, and things change. We all change. We are all different. No two people living today have had the same past. No two cultures today have had the same past. Even though I am Greek and other people I know are Greek, we're all different. We're different from each other, and we're different for each other. And from my own perspective, I know how difficult it is to have two pasts, to have a home in Australia and to have a home somewhere else. And as my father used to tell me all the time, anybody who has two homes is always torn between the both. They're both cultures, they're both locations, they're both geographies, they're both climates, because they're different. They're very, very different, but they're different for a reason. God made everything different so that we can have those differences to supplement and complement what we have in our world. So once again, the call to action is to make the most of what we've got and not to rely on other people, not to rely on governments, not to rely on the goodwill of others to make our world a better place. Each person needs to take ownership of their own life, and not to rely on others, and to do whatever they can do to make their life a little bit better. But it's all about serving others, serving God, loving God with all your heart, mind and soul, and loving your neighbour as you love yourself. And sometimes love needs to be tough love. And as parents, we know that every person has tremendous potential in their lives. But as we've learnt over the years, even eagles need to be pushed out of their nest in order to fly, to take flight, and to soar. And an eaglet can't stay in its nest forever. An eaglet can't be protected and looked after by its parents forever. It needs to take that leap of faith and to believe in the process of education, the process of continued growth and development, the process of closing the gaps in your life using your personal exertion, and not drifting in life, waiting for something to happen. My parents came to this country with not very much, just like most migrants came to this country. Many people who came here were displaced from their families, were displaced from their homelands, were displaced from their cultures. My parents could have stayed in Greece. They wanted to stay in Greece. But following World War II and the occupation by the Germans, the Italians, the Bulgarians, and everybody else, the raping and pillaging of the economy, the farms, the resources, and also the very, very ugly ensuing civil war, which pitted Greek against Greek, family member against family member, and tore Greece apart. The civil war in Greece was devastating. It was humiliating. It showed that when push comes to shove, people are only interested in their own things, their own expectations. And it's just common human nature. Now, there's nothing wrong about wanting the best for yourself and wanting the best for your family. It's just human nature. And I guess from an economic and a social perspective, everybody needs to fight for what they think is right and what's going to bring out the best in their world and the best for their families. But it's happened since the beginning of time, where people have tried to do all they can, to be all they can. So I guess the key message, of course, is that today is going to be a tough day. It's going to be a day where this country is divided, is torn apart in a big way. And you can just see what's going to happen. The Prime Minister will come up and just start blaming everybody else for what has happened. But the real reason for what is going to happen today is his lack of his tone deafness in terms of understanding what democracy is all about. Democracy always has been and always will be about satisfying the majority. And in a time where we've got cost of living crisis and all of these other issues in the world, we need to understand that the mums and dads, the families, all have issues at the moment. And the last thing on people's minds is to have identity politics take over and distract the government of the day and take their eye off the target. And the target at the moment for everybody, for all of these struggling families in Australia, is the cost of living crisis, to make sure that we can pay our mortgage, that we can put food on the table, that we can pay our bills and keep our jobs. And when we're satisfied, when the majority of Australians are satisfied and happy and comfortable, then and only then do people become generous with their money, with their time and with their love. But until that point, the timing of this voice referendum, and I just scratched my head on the evening of the election where Labor won comfortably. Albanese got up there, and the first thing he talked about was this Uluru statement. And I was scratching my head saying, what is he going on about? You know, it caught me by surprise, because I had no idea that we were going to be blindsided by this, and that all of our time, all of our energy was going to be drained by these very, very difficult discussions where we talk about things that we can't solve, things and problems that haven't been ours. You know, over the past 25 years, in the past generation, over $1 trillion has been invested. $1 trillion of taxpayers' money has been invested in Aboriginal affairs. We've had huge funds, huge licks of money go into this massive funnel, but it's amounted to nothing. And you've got to ask yourself, where has all of this money, where has all of this taxpayer money gone over the years? And to see that there is a failure, and it's not about recognition, it's not about the voice, it's just about poor poor implementation, the inability to get the money where it's needed most, and most of that money, if not all of that money, is sucked up and evaporated with administration and just going into the pockets of a few people and a few communities, and not representing and not giving back to those who need it most. As I say, today's going to be a tough day, and next week we're going to have the world pointing a finger at Australians, saying that we are racist, we're bigoted, we're rednecks, we're blockheads, and every single insult. I can imagine that this will resonate and reverberate across the world for years to come. But at the end of the day, we are not all of those things. Australians are pragmatic. Australians are patient. Australians are very, very loving and caring people. But what we don't do and what we don't support is incompetence from a ministerial and a government perspective. And Australians will vote today, and the silent majority will make a decision that will shape how things go forward. As I say, it's going to be very, very divisive. So I guess from my point of view, I just question why the Labor government thought that this was a good idea. What were they thinking in terms of how it's going to play out and how it's going to impact this generation and future generations? We need to be one nation. We need to be one country. We need to be one family. And we can't do it by indulging in identity politics, by saying you're different to me and I'm different to you, and you get advantages over me versus my family and other families. Now, by all means, we agree with welfare, and we agree with doing the right thing to our Indigenous brothers and sisters and helping them grow, develop, and become who they want to be. But by the same token, there's a way and a means of achieving this. And my experience over the years, especially from Greeks and Greek politics, is that you can't get any committee, any group of Greeks to decide on anything without ripping each other apart and fighting. So this whole voice concept, this whole thing about representation, is just going to divide further not only Australians and Indigenous people, but the Indigenous people amongst themselves. Because everybody has different needs, everybody has a different opinion in terms of what needs to be done and how things need to be fixed and where the priorities are. But all of that is just fallacy, all of it is just a bit of a joke, because you can't really get 24 people to represent anybody other than their own self-interests and their egos. And we've seen it before, and we'll continue to see it again and again. And as I say, to all my Greek friends and anybody who knows Greeks, when you get one Greek on his own, they can be a superstar. But when you get two or more, then you've got a battle, you've got a war, and you won't have agreement on absolutely anything. So there you go. So thank you very much for taking the opportunity to hear me out on this important day, a day that's going to be talked about for years to come. The potential damage that's going to be caused today for the Australian brand is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I really feel sorry for the Indigenous people who have had their branding of Uluru stained. It'll be stained today. I don't know why they would use the name of a Indigenous sacred site to be politicised as it has and to be manipulated as it has. But I guess, you know, that's marketing. They're trying to manipulate people's heart, mind and souls by getting them to feel warm and fuzzy about this statement from the heart, which, as we've seen through different news channels, that it doesn't really represent. It doesn't have the support across all of the people. And I guess what we need to do at some stage is to maybe have a Senate inquiry or some government inquiry into how the government was allowed, you know, to spend hundreds of millions of taxpayers' dollars on this Yes campaign and not have a balanced debate, not have a balanced chat in terms of how, when and why, and just to you know, use facts willy-nilly and to make statements without having those statements and those facts fact-checked and supported by the greater community. Anyway, take care everybody. Wishing you all the very best on this Saturday morning. It's a beautiful day and it's going to be a cracker of a day. But it's going to be a day that's going to, I guess, tear people, because it's not easy to go to a voting booth and to say no. But a lot of people, by the looks of things, based on the polling, will be doing just that today. And a lot of people who are voting yes will be scratching their heads saying, what is happening? You know, why are these people so mean? But as I saw on television the other day, they talked about where it's all gone wrong, and they said, look, there's always going to be people who are going to vote yes. The people who are, you know, progressive, who are woke, who have the middle class guilt. And there are people who are always going to vote no, who are very conservative, don't want things to change. And there's this group in the middle, these people who are half in the market and undecided. But the Yes campaign has failed to, as I said before, to capture their imagination, to make it obvious why people should vote yes, because they have failed to say and to show people what's in it for them. How can they benefit by voting yes, other than some esoteric, warm and fuzzy sort of feelings? Anyway, we'll chat again. Hopefully I can come to you from a different place in a different location. What I'll do is I'll do a follow-up video tomorrow, just detailing how the vote and the referendum actually went, and the excuses and the fallout. The fallout is going to be very, very interesting to hear what Albanese says, what other people say, and what the world says on this poorly managed, important historical moment for Australia, which I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Now, I think from an egotistical perspective, Albanese has a lot to answer for, and he should have focused on the important things and left this for another day. Take care, Yassas, and bye for now.